This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you late Monday night. It's May 6th. I guess now it's May 7th for some immediate reaction to the Wolves' 106-80 win in Denver. They only gave up 80 points.
All over my face.
I'm here with Kyle Teige. The Wolves head back to Minnesota with a 2-0 lead. No Rudy Gobert. No problem. Kyle, I feel like I don't even tee you up. I might just put a quarter in you and let you go for an hour. A lot of things to get into, but just give me your initial thoughts, your initial vibes off of that game.
You're not going to guess where I'm going with this.
Oh.
But do you know what next week is? It's the NBA lottery. And I had no fucking idea because the team that I cover and cheer for and the team you cover is I'll try to tone it down a little bit, but in the spirit of the rap battle going on over the last week, they're the fucking boogeyman. I mean, to do what they've done in this playoffs so far, and to not just, yes, they're 6-0 in the playoffs, and they win tonight without Rudy Gobert, and I think we should at some point talk about him a little bit and acknowledge, too, that, like, life takes precedent over basketball.
For sure.
He made the right move today, but I couldn't help but think today, of all days, I woke up today to a DM from a mutual friend of ours. I was like, hey, man, I don't think Rudy's in Denver. And then I'm not a reporter, so before I could even look into that or stuff, then we have, I don't know, some no-name from the East Coast that only the federal government knows talking about Ant, and then just all of a sudden 4 hours later we're tracking flights like it's SEC football. Today was awesome, and I haven't had a day like this on the, because like the internet, we always joke about how the last time the Wolves are good, MySpace was popular, like Twitter didn't exist. It's the first time I could tweet about the Wolves in May. Today was fucking awesome, and it was awesome to be online, and it was awesome for the fan base, and then to watch what happened for 48 minutes at Ball Arena. I mean, there's winning 2-0, there's stealing a couple of games, there's outplaying your opponent. That's not what happened in Denver. They came into the defending champs' house 2 nights ago, punched them in the face, and then they came in again tonight and punched them in the face again. And Denver not only didn't respond, and I've enjoyed ethical hoops, right? I was like, whoever wins this series, I'll probably cheer for to win the title. What Denver did tonight while being punched in the face, we need to talk about that too, because for the Minnesota Timberwolves in 2023 and 2024 were always put up to this test of immature. Can they, they break in tough moments. They react to the officiating on stuff. They didn't do any of that tonight. Meanwhile, the defending champs had their coach on the court. They had Bubble Murray throwing multiple items on the court. The MVP listening to MVP chants for another player in his arena. That's tough, man. That's tough.
It's interesting you say, like, they didn't respond, and that's true. They didn't. It's getting to the point where you wonder if they can, right? Like, yeah. Given what they're going up against, but I mean, and the injuries and stuff like that, it just,
yeah, but no.
The simple way to look at it is they are on the Wolves appear to be on a completely different level than the Denver Nuggets, and in a good way.
And that's why they're the boogeyman, because I still like to reference 8 Mile and the whole Wolves fans are Eminem. Like, we know everything you're going to say against us, okay? I thought, again, I was really excited for the series, man. I had no pettiness. I didn't really have a lot of receipts. And then after game 1, I don't know. I heard people call Wolves fans adorable. And that, I heard they say they really need to go through some adversity first. They really need to go through some stuff. Like, bitch, have you watched the last 20 years? Okay? This team is different. And everything that you want to be like, well, yeah, but, right? Like, I feel for Jamal Murray. That calf is really frustrating. Can't play the injury card because you beat this team last year without Jaden McDaniels and without Reid. There's no card for you to play. There's no card for the Phoenix Suns to play other than that team is just flat out better than us, better coached, more talent, more physical. And that's what Denver's staring down now, right? Like, the series isn't over. They're still the defending champs. They might have one more bullet in the chamber if they're all active for Game 3, which I think
Right.
we'll find out with what happens with Jamal Murray. But
No, we'll definitely talk about that.
this is just you've watched basketball your whole life. You're a basketball nerd. I've never, and that was kind of the post game stuff online and on TNT with Charles Barkley and those guys. You've never really seen a team do this. Like I accidentally said sucked the soul out of the Suns, but that's kind of what happened again tonight. Like they are just taking the life out of these teams and embarrassing them on their home court. And again, for the second
With
straight series,
defense.
with the second straight series where a 22-year-old who I still deem as a kid who's becoming a grown-up is getting MVP chance in a home where, I don't know, 2-3 days from now, Nikola Jokic is going to win his third MVP. That's tough, man. This is a different type of basketball team, and I've never seen anything like this in Minnesota sports.
A reminder: we are brought to you by Prize Picks. That was the Nickeil Alexander-Walker, more or less than 6.5 points. I'm not sure why that's what it's at every single game. Like that one going into this game, that one hit. Now you kind of got a feel for this series. Who is elevated, whose role is elevated, all that. It's fun to put together a daily fantasy lineup. So you can do that over at prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app for game 3 on Friday night, or the other upcoming playoff games as well. So it's prizepicks.com, Prize Picks app. Promo code Dane for a $100 sign up bonus. Kyle, I want to start with the defense. You said I watch a lot of basketball. I'm a basketball nerd. You too. Everyone listening to this, and I think this team in particular has just so made me appreciate defense, and it is, I really, and I don't even think this is a nerdy thing to say. Like, I think this team is just fun to watch play defense in the same way that like Lob City or whatever is fun, or the Splash Brothers, or like. The Pistons when they won the championship, it was like obviously they won it with defense, but it kind of felt like, I don't know, just like the team slowly moving forward and taking down their opponent. Like it, I guess that was 20 years ago, so I don't remember how fun it was or wasn't. But this defense is fun to watch and looks like hell to play against. If you're Jamal Murray, particularly with a somewhat bum calf, the combination on the floor at the same time, which we did not see a ton of during the regular season, of Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I mean, the refs were letting them play a little bit tonight, but man, that just looks extraordinarily difficult to play against offensively for Denver. Ant made sure to give Jaden McDaniels in particular a shout out in his press conference. It was just like in the middle of a question about something else. He was like, nah, I'm going to talk about Jaden McDaniels. Here's Ant.
But I do want to just shout out Jaden McDaniels, man, before I get out of here. He's been phenomenal this whole playoff run, and this series in particular. I think he's like a plus 51 or something, and only probably had 5 points, took 3 shots in all 2 games, and don't complain, keep guard, and keep picking up full court, and we wouldn't be the team that we are today. We wouldn't have been the team that we was in the regular season, and hopefully we can keep him out there and he keeps playing like that, man, because he's definitely the X factor of the team, and everything that he brings is we thank him so much, man. So big shout out to Jaden for sure.
For sure. Kyle, I just watching it like in basketball, a lot of times, like, you want the ball. That's the fun part. That's the fun time to be able to do something though for Jaden. When he was running back on defense, like, was doing it with the same glee of like, oh, the offense is running through me. Like, he just seems cool with that role that Ant is explaining, but like loves it. He looked like, and then he picked up his 4th foul in the second half, but the first half, that looked like the most fun I've seen Jaden McDaniels have playing basketball in 4 years of covering him. He was just, as Finch said after the game, like, smelled blood in the water, and him and Nickeil and everybody. I mean, we could talk about that. It wasn't just Jaden, but particularly with Rudy out tonight, it was a reminder that there's not just one elite defensive player on this team. That dude, is hell to play against. It certainly looks like it. I thought he was incredible within his role, which is a rare role, but in an extremely important one.
Just to acknowledge payroll Twitter, do you want to talk about what Jaden makes next year? Alan Horton had this playoffs so far, best plus minus in the NBA. First, Jaden McDaniels plus 88. Anthony Edwards also first, plus 88. Mike Conley plus 78 in third. Rudy Gobert plus 74. Nikhil plus 54. Carl plus 44. I think he's plus 50 in these first two games. Jaden plus 50, plus 51. Team best, tied with Mike. He's made 5. He's taken 9 shots. He's made 5 points. He has 5 points against the defending champs in the first two games in their arena, and he's a plus 50. Mm-hmm. Okay, and to one other point about just defense in general, one plus for me. What did I say to you in February? I think it was like a live show or something.
A lot of stuff.
I said, I think this, and I'm a homer because I do love watching this team, but I also just love basketball and I love watching other teams. I think this is more fun than that Warriors team with KD and those death lineups. I think that was awesome. I think offense is cool. But I said that to you 2 months ago. I think watching defense, because when you're just cooking on offense, it's just a natural thought process in modern day basketball, whether it be pickup or college or NBA. Okay, if we hit some shots, we can do it. This defense, going back to this boogeyman philosophy, you're just taking the soul out of a team. You were just saying, I don't know, this is really niche, but I don't know if you've ever seen that kind of viral video where that guy is like watching horse racing and he's just getting up like on his own pretend horse. That's the exact movement I did. I stood up in front of my TV and started riding my own fake horse when Nikhil picked up Jamal Murray full court, and then him and Jaden just escorted him to Azkaban on that one possession. People were yelling in the crowd like it was almost like the Simpsons thing, like, stop, he's already dead. It was incredible. They had 3 or 4 24-second shot clock violations. That's incredible against the team that everyone in the league would say is the most well-oiled machine on offense. They had Nikola Jokic just at one point just have the ball in his hands. He didn't have a clue what the shot clock was at. He had to throw it over his head. Defense, man. The reason defense is cool too, because when you're offense, you can just hit a bunch of shots, 5 out, spread the floor, whatever, cook. Defense is all about want to. Defense is all about, like you just said earlier, like, I don't know if you saw this in game, but Nickeil Alexander-Walker had a moment where he was guarding Jamal Murray and he was smiling.
Yeah.
That's lunacy. Like, that is literal degenerate type stuff. And for Chris Finch and Micah Nori and everyone on that, Corliss Williams, like, to everyone to have this team buy in to playing defense. I know after the game when you were talking to Ant and Carl, that was one of the things Ant talked about post-game was when Finch came in here, he challenged Cat and I and said, hey, if you guys want to do that. Yeah, if you want, do you have that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was an interesting framing of the question too, kind of Carl going against the narrative, right, of him not being a defensive player and a stat stuffer. So that was the framing of this. But yeah, here's a question to Kat that Ant answered.
Kat, years and years ago when you came into this league as the number 1 pick, you were drafted not only for your offensive talent but for your defense and the promise that everyone thought you had. Does it feel good to be getting back to that and showing your capabilities again and not, just being viewed as the stat stuffer and the big offensive player that you were?
He was never viewed as a stat stuffer or just a.
No,
I know that. I'm just saying he was never viewed as that. Especially when I got here, I always thought he was a great defensive player. He just had to put his mind to it. And when Finchy got here, man, Finchy put emphasis on, hey, and Cat, if we want to go somewhere, we got to defend. And like he said, that's the head of the snake. And hearing that from him, it pushed Cat, man. And I tell Cat, we need you to defend. Corliss tell Cat, we need you to defend the whole team. And, ever since he been back this whole year, man, since he been at the 4, he been defending his ass off. So he's been playing great, and we hope he continues to do it.
I think we need to talk about, there's 2 things there, and we can get to Ant later, because just another moment where, that's a really good question from Krasinski. because it's a really, as the Wolves continue to progress, we need to talk about the play Rudy off the floor. And we need to talk about, again, we need to bring it up, that Karl can't play defense, because that's how you kind of eliminate those narratives. There's only 8 teams or whatever left. Like, we got to talk about that stuff now. So great question. But for Ant to jump in and answer it was awesome. But to spin it back to Karl, no Rudy Gobert tonight. Mm-hmm. Karl has to play the 5. He doesn't have, that brilliant strategy of letting Rudy roam off of Aaron Gordon or whatever.
Yeah, man. I thought they had no shot without that. I really did.
Karl-Anthony Towns against
the
3-time MVP.
Credit.
And he played his ass off. We're going to do it every night now because we're doing pods all the way through June. If you're grading Karl-Anthony Towns' performance tonight,
oh yeah,
I was probably a little harsh on him after game 1. I thought that was top 3 performance, both sides of the basketball, from Karl-Anthony Towns that I've ever seen. I don't really remember any stray voltage, hit some big shots, and defensively, he was an absolute madman.
No, 100%. I mean, to do that and to what he was doing off, I thought it was one of his best offensive games from doing what he needs to do within the context of this team offensively as well, of quick decisions. That his first catch of the game was just immediately square shoot a mid-range jump shot. Yep. His catches on the perimeter, again, he started by shooting them, and then what happened? Then then he could have the catch and goes, and he had that consistently throughout the game. Ant left him the room to be able to do that, and then kind of, because punch is the buzzword of the day today, then he could kind of come in with the final punch there as well. I want to keep talking about the defense. I want to talk about Nas too, the no Rudy, and credit to Karl. I want to talk about the Nas element of it too, because it required multiple great defensive efforts from the bigs to be able to win this game. That was the only way that was going to be able to happen, and credit to Karl, but Nas as well. Let's let people know about the live shows though this week first, Kyle. This is going to be a really fun, literally the most fun the most fun
I'm
weekend.
Literally pre-gaming right now for Thursday.
we are doing a live show at Falling Knife Brewing Company on Thursday night, May 9th, the day before game 3, to kind of kick off the weekend. We're going to be there. I know, man, it is so cool and crazy to me. The game is a 9 p.m. Central Time tip, pitch dark outside at Falling Knife, and there was hundreds and hundreds of people sitting outside watching the game on their big TV truck there outside. I'm excited. The show that we're going to be doing there on Thursday is going to be outside as well. We're just going to have some fun with it. Obviously, we'll talk about the series in Game 3, and but also take questions from everyone, and just kind of enjoy the great place the Wolves are in. But then also on Saturday, so it's Thursday live show at Falling Knife, Friday night obviously the game at Target Center, and then on Saturday kind of afternoon we're going to do another live show at Dual Citizen Brewing, which is in St. Paul. Falling Knife is in Minneapolis. Dual Citizen is in St. Paul. We'll do a 4 p.m. happy hour for that, 5 p.m. live podcast at Dual Citizen. I mean, and I know a lot of people, you're going out a lot for these Wolves games, but you haven't been able to do that in 20 years. So let's go all in here this weekend. This is going to be fun. We just want to have fun with it. It's, I'm jealous of seeing people having fun, and the community of the Wolves fan base all kind of getting together. This will be a great time to gather. I'm really looking forward to this weekend. Again, that's Thursday night at Falling Knife Brewing Company, 6 p.m. happy hour, 7 p.m. live show. And then on Saturday at Dual Citizen Brewing, 4 p.m. happy hour, 5 p.m. live podcast.
You have to go. It was optional after game 1 when we talked about it. And I said you wanted them to go. I needed them to go. Everyone has to go now. Governor Walz, Jesse Ventura, DJ Ski, Judy Garland. If you pay taxes in Minnesota, you got to show up. This is, let's be honest, let's call a spade a spade. We did not think the Wolves would be 2-0 when we planned these events.
No, we did not.
Is, we hope for it, but this is going to be the best 4-day stretch for Minnesota sports in a long, long time. So again, and it's another way too to support the people that support us. So we'll be tweeting it out. We'll be posting it on Instagram and stuff. But yeah, Thursday, Saturday, clear your schedules. Come have a beverage. Bring a question. You and I will be there before and after, and we'll stay as long as people want and mix it up. So I'm excited.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. Yep, can't wait for just this whole weekend. I'm excited to go home and sleep for a couple days or whatever. Maybe get a Rudy Gobert Defensive Player of the Year press conference in there in between. I mean, vibes are high. Vibes are high. Things are good right now. I did say I want to keep talking about the defense. I want to keep talking about no Rudy, Cat stepping up. I mean, Cat has done a great job on Jokic, not just in these 2 games, but through the season last year. But Nas hasn't always. And I think I've shared this before. I remember being out here in Denver, and Cat didn't play in the game. It was a regular season game last year. I think it was around the trade deadline. And Jokic just killed Nas. And I remember, like, it wasn't like during the scrum or whatever. I just kind of went up to him and I was like, so what was that like? Like, how do you handle that matchup? And I remember him looking at me and he's like, I'm gonna fucking figure it out. That's what he said. And he did. I mean, it's never stopping Jokic, but figuring out Jokic means doing what he and Carl and crew did to him tonight. And I think Nas and Carl are so representative of the way that this team has embraced defense this year. Those are guys, no secret at all. I mean, even 2 years ago, those were pretty much all offense, no defense guy. 3 years ago, right? And they have changed their bodies, changed their positions, and changed their games to prioritize defense. And Nas Reid, I think, has Cat gets a hard time for his defense, but Cat was always a significantly better defender than Nas Reid was. Nas really struggled defensively early on in his career, and as recently as last season, we talked about at length the reason that he won Sixth Man of the Year was because his contributions were not just on the offensive side of the floor. I bring up that story because Finch actually referenced that game in his post-game press conference when asked about Nas. I'll play that here.
Nas has improved dramatically this season on defense, but a lot of that has been like from the mid-range out to the perimeter. His defense in the paint tonight, particularly on Jokic, was a dramatic step up, it seemed.
Yeah, I thought it's been fun to watch him grow in that regard. I remember a game last year, when we played here and we didn't have Cat. We put him on, and he's kind of afraid to touch him a little bit. And Jokic had a big night, but just using his physicality, using his quickness, using his hands, just whatever he has to do to try to unsettle him, which is all you really can do. Until we can bring enough help. But yeah, it's activity defensively on him has been outstanding.
I thought that was huge. That was so huge, Kyle.
I always joke about making farm animal noises during certain plays because I'm a big fan of Jaden McDaniels. I wasn't sitting by you tonight on press row, but when Jokic spun left shoulder and tried to have his little hook and Nas blocked it, what animal sound did you make? Because that was, I mean, there's the NBA, Grady posts this on Instagram. That's how I know this, but there's like a NBA account that posted like 6 or 7 highlights, and they're all Wolves defensive highlights. And there's a couple where like a Nugget player has the ball under the rim, and Nas is usually around it, and they just played perfect defense. Like they didn't reach, they didn't foul, they went straight up, and then Nas had 4 blocks tonight. He's incredible. He also just let it rip from 3 8 times, just 4 for 8 from 3 for 14 points, took 14 shots. I know it's a random thing, but I think taking 8 threes was the most impressive part. I know we're talking defense, but he hasn't really played well in the playoffs, I didn't think. I know he kind of had a couple moments there in the second half on game 1, which kind of got his, momentum going or his confidence back, but I mean, man, when he's good, it's like we joked about in February. When he's good, this team is great. And he was great offensively, but then the stuff he was doing on defense, like, they just didn't have Rudy Gobert, and no one, myself included, it was just like, okay, you got your split, go home, regroup, kiss a baby, like, get this thing back on the tracks. And he was awesome tonight. I mean, him and Carl held the soon-to-be-named 3-time MVP to 16 points. I know that, like, doesn't sound, I mean, it's Jokic at 16.
I mean, I
16,
think we all get it now. That's pretty damn good. Yeah.
Like, if Nikola Jokic, in what I deemed a couple nights ago, was this was the biggest game of this potential dynasty, it's kind of a season on the line, he couldn't even get shots off, man. Like, that's the thing. It's not even the 16 points. He only took 13 shots. Nikola Jokic took less shots tonight in the most pivotal game for the Nuggets than Naz Reid took. Oh. That's crazy, man. And to your point, you've been on it since the beginning. You've been on the island. Naz Reid is the best, greatest developmental story in Timberwolves franchise history in 35 years. What he came from, what he was. I mean, he was just, and he'll tell you, he was just a fat kid out of LSU who had to play summer league and was undrafted. And now he is, I mean, he was the third best player on the court tonight against the defending champs. He's a starting caliber player that comes off the bench, probably has as high of a Q score in the league as anyone. And is, you know, we're going to talk about Ant. He's probably as well liked as Anthony Edwards. I had a buddy send me a picture or a video tonight, a high school friend that lives in Western North Dakota that was just at a sports bar. And it was like a made basket, and he's taking a video of the place, and then he pans up, Western North Dakota. And there's a Naz Reid towel hanging from the ceiling of this bar like a banner.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy. Shout out to the Western North Dakota fans.
Yeah. I what more can we...
Sensational.
This is what I was going to say. Like, so remember Tim Conley came in and he was like, we want to have good guys or whatever. We all rolled our eyes at that. That was proved to be true.
Thanks,
and
Tim.
Smart and accurate.
Remember when Walker Kessler was when he was talking about his 3-point, he was like, "Thanks, Tim." I always think about that.
Walker Kessler's too nice. I had to trade him. But there's I mean, to the extent that a reporter can know the players, I do think they're, they are good guys, fight for each other, all those sort of things. But they also have this competitiveness. Mm-hmm. And every one of them, every guy who plays in the rotation. And to me, where that shows up most is on the defensive side of the floor, because for most, for a lot of the guys, that is their lesser side of the floor. And I think Naz is such a good representation of that. That is not his inherent strengths there, but he, like Jaden McDaniels, like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, like Karl Anthony Towns, is putting in the effort to stay connected. We saw that at the very beginning of the season. You're like, okay, this might be the number one defense. And that's what it was to me. It was like, I was like, okay, this might be the best defense in the league a couple weeks in, because you saw that staying connected. And it's the antithesis of what people think NBA defense is, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody guards, but it is, a competitor is someone who wants to win and thus understands the things they have to execute and do to be able to do that, even if they are not their strengths. And I think Naz Reid and Karl Anthony Towns are terrific examples of that, of competing. And that can make up a world of difference in what you do or don't have physically. Fortunately, a lot of those guys are loaded physically as well. And I think that is just that competitiveness applied to the defensive side of the floor, which I will say a lot of that credit has to go to Chris Finch and hammering that from the jump, and actually I think I have another Finch quote here. I was going to say Finch and Rudy. I think this one's kind of long. I'll cut it off at some point, but he talked about instilling that defensive culture, the best defensive players, instilling it, and everyone else kind of buying in. Obviously, we saw that tonight.
I think Rudy's absence did that even heighten everyone's awareness and focus, or what? How do you explain it with without the best player on your floor defensively?
Well, listen, Rudy's driven a defensive culture here, and I think it's a testament to to his impact, his presence, and what he's infused into the team on how important defense is and how great we can be when we play it. That aside, we've always we expect to win no matter who's with us and who's not. And our guys truly believe that. And, we're very, 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 very happy for Rudy, extremely happy for him. And guys feel that way, but they're ready to go. It's just tweak a few things to the game plan and kind of just went at it.
Anthony Edwards, Christian Laettner, Dean Garrett, Troy Hudson, Tyus Jones, Joe Smith, Terry Porter, Pooh Richardson.
Just reading off players.
Do you know what those guys have in common? They've all played less games for the Timberwolves than Naz Reid. Naz Reid is 12th in games played. And the reason I say that is because
that's crazy.
We've known it, right? Like you've been on it since you watched him in Vegas a handful of years ago. But he's really only been this version of him for like a year. But I always think back to last year when the times were a little tougher. And I think we were in the locker room or something. But you remember, I don't know if it was Finch or someone asking, like, the Wolves were losing a lot of games. And we asked, like, who takes it the hardest? Like, who hates losing the most?
Yeah, Nas.
And it was Nas.
Yeah.
And we talk about Tim Conley, and deservedly so. That man is real close to getting a statue outside of Target Center.
I heard he got they put him up on the screen apparently during the game on the broadcast, and the guys at Falling Knife texted me that he got a standing ovation from the entire crowd of Falling Knife.
And when we talk about him, we talk about new ownership and well-deserved and Ant, and Finchy and all these guys that have affected the culture. I think we got to at least give, how they say, he's got to be in the conversation. I think Naz Reid needs to be in the conversation of this culture change.
Sure.
Because he is quite possibly, with all due respect to Anthony Edwards, the most competitive guy on this roster. And, he's signed for a couple more years. He's well on pace by, next February, he'll be top 8 in games played for the Minnesota Timberwolves in franchise history. But his story, man, is worth a book. Like, what he's done. I mean, shout out to Chris Hine again for writing one of the best pieces I've ever written on Nas and his story. But
that you've ever written?
That I've ever read. It's 1 a.m. But shout out to Chris. But, I mean, he's that awesome. And tonight, what did we say? What did we say in Phoenix? They didn't really need Nas, right? It just wasn't really a power forward.
Yeah.
Like, whoever was going to have to guard KD is probably going to get cooked, and Nas got cooked a little bit. And then he just didn't lose his confidence, and he comes back in, and he really, we said he was the X factor in game 1. And then tonight, man, he was just, the points were cool, but those 4 blocks were all about that thing we talked about for 20 minutes off the rip, the defense. I mean, defense isn't just playing really good defense, you're getting rebounds, it's also getting blocks and steals. And he and Nikhil, the 2 goddamn best bench players right now, maybe in the playoffs, were phenomenal.
Kyle, I want to talk a little bit about Denver, and I think, and I mean, you might go a different direction. I don't mean this in like a piling on to their frustration, but I thought the frustration that they had early in the game was noteworthy, and had a hint of desperation to it. And I do think at that time, when Malone and Murray were blowing up, they had somewhat of a beef. They were getting a bad whistle, but the reaction was so outsized that it kind of came off as like the crab in the water, or however that works. You're like, you're pulling down things with you. Barrel.
You've been hanging out with Britt too much.
Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
They just. They came off as desperate and frustrated and kind of feeling like they didn't have another gear to go to, or maybe they were feeling that they weren't being allowed to get to it. But for me, in thinking about the rest of the series that isn't over, it feels relevant that they are at this spot right now. And I think if you want to make the case for the Wolves to kind of roll through this quickly, which again, to be determined, a lot of it is about where Denver seems to be at in terms of just kind of their mental state, which I think is probably connected to the physical state of, their second best player who's hurt. And I think they're a little banged up down the roster the rest of the way. But did that stand out to you in the same way of just kind of how they emotionally seem to really lose themselves in that frustration?
Different roster makeup, right, than the team I'm about to compare them to, but the exact same energy of the little brother has finally just morphed and is better than the bigger brother that we saw from Golden State when Klay Thompson and Draymond Green lost their shit and tried to choke out Jaden and Rudy. Because as our guy Harrison Wynn said just a couple minutes ago, it's one thing to lose, but the Nuggets went out like losers. Which brings me to my new segment, sponsored by ZQL, called Fucking Yikes. Jamal Murray, back-to-back games, doesn't speak to the media post-game. Throws a heat pack on the court. Throws a towel on the court. Mike Malone running onto the court, begging to get ejected.
Missoula style.
Yeah. And getting MVP chance in the arena that Nicole... I mean, that's all just fucking yikes, man. It is, and that goes back to the boogeyman thing again. It's not losing. Like, there's one way to lose. It's just we lost. But the Wolves have tightened the screws on this team so much, a team that I really respected, that now the Nuggets are, you see all the guys that cover them and stuff, they're talking about, like, if this thing ends on the trajectory that it's gone through 2 games, are they going to have to make changes? Like, you never thought that.
But I don't know. I mean, it's also only it's only 2-0
games.
Like, yeah, I think that team is, Drink gonna punch back, and it's gonna be, are the Wolves gonna be able to handle that punch and punch back themselves? I don't think we're at a point of that team needing to break up or anything like that. I mean, maybe that wasn't you saying that. Somebody else said that. I would say that's dumb. That team is awesome. That is an awesome team, and the Wolves this week are clearly better than them. But I think, I don't know. I think that almost like takes away from what the Wolves are doing. I think the Wolves have frustrated a great team. That will remain a great team, winning or losing to the Wolves in this round.
I would hope that people listening to this don't think I'm taking away anything from the Timberwolves, but like Nikola Jokic on how he expects the team to respond in Game 3. I don't know. That's not the quotes you would hear from a team that hasn't had their soul taken away from them, and that's kind of what I'm saying. I mean,
I'm saying that too. I brought up the topic. Yeah.
It's not when you lose sometimes in the playoffs. It's how you lose, right? And that's my point. Like, I don't care what Denver does, but I'm just saying to lose the way they're losing, to have the people that cover you and see you every day and their Dane Moores of the world be like, man, they kind of went out like punks. That's. I mean, we talked about defense all night.
I think
it's
the classic overreaction thing. I mean, me, Chris, and Jace did that after Game 5 here in Denver last year. Sometimes when you are so close to a team and you see the things that are going wrong, you can catastrophize them. And again, like, hand raised. That was it. And this was completely wrong. We left that game being like, what the hell? What were we thinking? What were they thinking with this trade? And where is this going? Does this team need to, we said those same things. Does this team need to break up, reconfigure, whatever, to make something different happen? And sometimes what just happens is you play a team that's better than you and you yourself are banged up. It feels a lot like just the roles have been reversed this season.
It's too late for us to argue, but I would push back that the Wolves, we just spent in the first 40 minutes a lot of time talking about Jaden McDaniels having the highest plus minus in the playoffs and Reid being the 6th man of the year. The Nuggets aren't missing guys like that. Jamal Murray might have a tough calf, but when the Wolves got beaten last year,
I disagree, man. You
I'm
don't have Jamal Murray.
I'm not. Yeah, but also too.
I'm not trying to take away from the Wolves, but
we're getting in a little bit of like injured versus hurt thing, where it's like I know Jamal Murray's hurt, but like you hit two.
You thought Jamal Murray looked pretty good tonight.
I saw him hit 2 game winners against the Lakers with that.
What do you think about his dunk attempt tonight?
I think he was frustrated because he was put in the gulag by Nikhil and Jaden. Again, I'm not trying to like blow up the Nuggets. I'm just saying when those.
You said that.
I'm saying that I'm reading the same people that cover that team that are like, Mike Malone knew tonight was a big game. He tried to get ejected. That was the whole point, right? By the way, like you knew he went out on the court because he was like, you have to throw me out of this game because I have to give my team a little jolt. And he didn't even get a technical, which, by the way, again, to the Wolves' maturity. And there's only been like, 2 technicals in these playoffs? And one was Ant that was rescinded. And then Aaron Gordon got one tonight. And none of us on TV saw what happened. But even in those 5 games that they beat the Lakers, they also looked unprepared. I'm not trying to fire Mike Malone. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I don't really care about them. But my point is that there is an importance there. Come on, man, it's the playoffs. Like, how you lose does determine some of this stuff. And at worst case scenario, it makes for a hellacious summer. And I think these guys could be in for a hellacious summer if they don't show. It's one thing to lose, but the way they lost tonight by just skipping post-game media, throwing antics, like throwing objects on the floor.
Yes, that's completely.
Pat Bev threw a ball into the stands. Yeah. Jamal Murray threw something on the floor like twice. Mm-hmm. That's come on, man. Like same energy. Keep it. Not you. Everyone else.
Yeah. No. The one for me, I get what Malone was doing. He was
for sure
trying to.
I thought it was a good move.
And it was a reaction, I think, to the possession before, and I think that's where they missed a call, and I think that's why Mark Davis didn't tee him up. Right? Was because
Carl on Jamal.
Yeah. Whatever the frustration of a previous missed call, and that's what I did. I get that. Whatever. Like, give him a tech. They should have got a tech. That's okay. That's a fine tactic. What's not okay is throwing that hot pack onto the floor. I was kind of trying to I slowed that down and tweeted it out, like trying to Zapruder where it was coming from. It looked to me on the clip that it hit Kyle Anderson and then ricocheted to right underneath Karl Anthony Towns' feet, and Karl could easily stepped on that and slipped on. I mean, that is, to quote Harrison, who covers the Nuggets, loser behavior.
Listen, man, as a fan,
yeah,
you throw something on the floor, you get ejected.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's Finch kind of explained it to what the refs explained to him about that, and Finch had a funny answer.
Jamal Murray was frustrated on the bench, and he threw a heat pack onto the court.
Yeah.
Kentavious picked it up and tossed it off, and obviously there wasn't a technical call foul. But I'm wondering if you were aware of it and what you think of a player doing that.
Well, I didn't actually see it happen, but when it was explained to me, the referees didn't see it either, so they're not able to issue a technical unless they see it. We tried to impress upon them that there probably aren't many fans in the building that have a heat pack, so it probably had to come from the bench, which they found logical. But yeah, it's inexcusable and dangerous. And I'm sure it was just a mistake and an oversight. I'm sure there was nothing intentional by the officiating at all, but certainly can't allow that to happen. So,
you know what's crazy too? Ryan Eichten from Canis Hoopus, who does a really good job covering the team, tweeted a video a couple plays before that. Jamal Murray on the bench had thrown a towel that just missed getting on the court, but it landed right behind the ref, and the ball boy grabbed it or whatever. But he actually threw 2 objects on the court. And again, that's just, we can disagree or whatever, how you lose, whatever, but it does give you a direct line into the psyche of this team, the Nuggets, that for the first 30 minutes what we talked about, that defense, man, I think if the Wolves were putting up 140 in the first couple games.
I agree. The defense for sure frustrated.
The Nuggets would be listen, we got to clamp it down a little bit. We got to maybe slow it down. We can't let them get $140. That's not what the Wolves are doing. The Wolves are just somehow, charging your cell phone, getting stronger every game they play. And
no more
that
low
just
power
that makes it, I mean, really, truly, for all the basketball you've watched and played in your life, doesn't that just make it even harder? I mean, not only are you down, that's why it's like, in one vein, I want to say defending champs, Nikola Jokic, 3-time MVP, they're going to, punch back. But in the same vein, it's like, man, down 2-0, you got to go to Target Center now for 2 games, and you're playing against, I mean, fuck the league's best defense, man. Charles Barkley thought it was the best defense he's ever seen. Like, it's close, borderline historic. So I don't know. It was a really bad showing from them. And I'm not trying to like underplay that Jamal Murray's not hurt, but I don't know. I didn't mean to be a dick to you, but it was the same Jamal Murray that hit some crazy, crazy game winners against AD, and everyone was like, "That's awesome, Bubble Murray."
Do you think he had a good first round?
No, but I also don't think that. Here's my take. I don't think that his bad second round performance is strictly because he's dragging around one leg.
To be clear, I agree with that.
Okay.
Yes. No.
Okay.
It is the defense that the Wolves are playing is frustrating them, which is leading to it. Probably they're already, like Jamal in particular, already being frustrated about his calf, and then acting out irresponsibly and in a dangerous way. Like I tweeted out, like, go look, like Carl almost steps on that thing.
Yeah,
like
nasty.
That's not that. Yeah, that's. I mean, like, what are we talking about if he does do that and he does the splits or something like that?
What are we talking about if Carl throws a heat pack on the floor?
I mean, I would
in
be
prison.
saying the same thing. Yeah,
right. You got life in prison. So, and that this all kind of wraps up right into one big talking point that the defense is so frustrating to play against. And if you do have an injury or you're not right, and Jamal Murray is clearly not right, he's still an awesome, awesome all-star guard. It just makes it so frustrating. And you saw it tonight. Not only, by the way, not only from Jamal Murray and Mike Malone. I really thought Nikola Jokic was going to take a swing at someone. Like, he was so frustrated.
He's frustrated too, yeah.
And so physical. And his post-game comments, if you go watch all his quotes, like, it looks like a team right now that's going to really need some sort of a pep talk. And similar to the Suns, I don't know if you'll agree on this, but they don't have a lot of options off the bench to, like, if we want to talk about adjustments, right? Like, they played Holiday tonight, 22 minutes. Reggie Jackson, 10. He got hurt. And Christian Braun, 11.
I will say, I did see him walking out
he did
of the
post-game
stadium.
media, too. So, I mean, I don't know
Yeah,
what that means.
I didn't even see the play that because I think Jackson is important, super relevant for Game 3 because if maybe Murray gets suspended, I don't know. Like, and even if he
have
doesn't,
to do post-game media again. That'd be nice.
But like Jackson got like carried off in the sense that like he had his arms around like
and
two
he
trainers.
was jumping on the TV, like he was jumping back to the locker room on one foot, like when you sprain your ankle. So I don't know what it was, but then he did talk after the game. So
yeah, he talked after the game, and I literally saw him like walking out of the stadium, no like boot or anything like that. So because I had that down in my notes. I was like, what if Murray's suspended and Reggie Jackson is out injured? That
they played 6 guys 12 minutes or more tonight.
Yeah.
And again, pretty much a blowout from the rip, but
it's also smacked him in those first non-Jokic minutes too. When the game was still in the the balance. I like overall. I wrote this down when they pulled the starters. The Wolves were a +7. Like when the scrubs came into the game, the Wolves were a +7 in the non-Jokic minutes before the starters were pulled, and just in general, which is kind of the non-Jokic minutes. Like the Wolves also won the non-Ant minutes, which I think is another important thing there. That's where in game, even in game 1 and certainly throughout the regular season series, like the Wolves did not have offense when Ant hasn't been on the floor in this matchup. So to the bench and all that. Yeah.
I want to clear it up. A couple beers. I think the Nuggets are very good, and I think they should run it back next year, however this series plays out. But I do think watching this, because I just get frustrated with this. This is like a Bill Simmons thing about injuries. I think if Jamal Murray was at full health, this series would still be 2-0 Minnesota because of that defense. Because they like you said, we've never really seen, we've always kind of wanted it, but they have unleashed Nikhil and Jaden out there along with Ant, whether Rudy's back there or not. Carl
That's
Plant,
the thing, man. Both of them out there is tough.
There was a possession tonight, man, where Jamal had Jaden on him, and he had to fight like hell to get him off in a switch, and he finally got Jaden off him, and then there's Nikhil, and Nikhil's smiling at him like a serial killer. I mean, if you could have 12 Cavs, it doesn't really matter. They just don't have a lot of options. And again, for the second round, I think it's something we got to monitor moving forward and talk about. The only take I've ever had right about sports was that I thought 2 years ago the Timberwolves were the deepest team in the league, and I thought this year they got even deeper. And that depth, man, Naz Reid and Nikhil Alexander-Walker could start for the Nuggets right now. Like, you could find plays to put them, so
sure.
That's tough. But 50 minutes in, and we haven't even talked about the dude who hit the shrug.
Yeah, let's grab our second break, and then we'll do a little bit of Ant. Today's show is brought to you by Adriana Lonick at Coldwell Banker Realty. Adriana is a realtor, obviously, for Coldwell Banker, and when we were talking about this partnership, I thought it was something that made a lot of sense for those of you listening. If you are at that stage in your life where you are a first-time home buyer, you're wanting to buy a second property, sell your home, to do any of that stuff, particularly if you are a first-time home buyer, you don't know how that works. You need somebody who has sold many homes to help you out in that process. And Adriana is going to help you make that experience happen. And just by starting a conversation with her, just somebody who knows where to begin with this stuff. The reality of the situation is it starts with a conversation with a realtor who can move you in the right direction. So we want you to go to, if you are considering this, we want you to go to thedancingrealtor.com. It's up on the screen here. It's super accessible for whatever it is that you're looking for. What Adriana is great at is contacting and connecting with you. You can, again, find her at thedancingrealtor.com, or you can call or text her at 715-304-9920. Again, her name's Adriana Lonick. She works with Coldwell Banker Realty. If you are considering the next steps in home ownership, do contact her at thedancingrealtor.com. Today's show is also brought to you by Autograph. And why I'm excited to talk about this one is this: they have a way for you to get to, somebody is going to get $24 tickets to Game 3 at Target Center. Autograph is an app where they have a Timberwolves. Well, they have a bunch of different team communities. So whatever team it's, whatever sport, it's a place that has all of that team's content all in one place. So in the Timberwolves community, this podcast, this YouTube show is on there. All the articles, all that sort of stuff. It's all in one place at Autograph. But they also, how it works there is by consuming content through the app, you get these fan credits, and you can use these fan credits to put yourself in a drawing for tickets to Game 3 at Target Center. That drop is happening on Thursday, May 9th at 2 p.m. So you're gonna want to get that in there, put your name in the mix. I know tickets are crazy expensive, so I'm genuinely like, I really want the person who gets these tickets and basically saves $500. I would really like it to be a listener. So go download the Autograph app. It's up on the QR code is up on the screen right now, or you can just at the App Store or Google Play Store download that, and do use the referral code DaneMoore to let them know that you came from us. Again, that's the Autograph app. 2 tickets to Timberwolves Nuggets Game 3 at home for $24 each. You will need 1,000 fan coins for a chance to purchase those tickets. And again, the drop will be between 2 and 2:15 p.m. on Thursday, May 9th.
The cheapest ticket, lower bowl right now, on a website that does not sponsor the podcast, is $778.
Jesus.
It looks like it's $278 to get in. Do I qualify for Autograph? I might have to use those tickets to get in.
Do I qualify?
That's it's gonna be. I'm telling you, man. Friday, not to get ahead of ourselves, but Friday is gonna be something. And that's why if you can't get to the game, I know we already did this ad read, but if you can't get to the game, man, come out on Thursday, come out on Saturday. Go support local businesses downtown. This weekend you're a lifer in Minnesota, and I can't imagine a better sports weekend that you've ever experienced than what's about to come to Minneapolis.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I don't mean this to like, again, rip on like Denver or whatever, but I was sitting there before the game. I went up to my seat, pretty early. I was sitting with Michael Grady and Patrick Reese, who works for the team. And it was like 20 minutes before the game. And it was just like really empty in there. And it filled up by game time, and it was loud until the game got out of hand. But I was saying to them, I'm like, man, that play, like, Friday at Target Center is not going to be like that. And part of it, I'm sure Denver, you won the championship before. This is the second round. Like the second round does mean more to Wolves fans right now. It's just been, it's the onslaught of like messages and emails and stuff that I've got like really cool and really, really, really kind. I haven't had time to respond to all of them, but I say all the time like that. It's like when I take myself out of like the game and pull back and, just like in the group messages and stuff that I'm in, the timeout and open that up. And it's like, oh, it's 67 messages. And it's all like my fantasy football league talking about the Wolves, the Wolves. And it's just so cool to, I don't know. I love the basketball community in Minnesota. And in my life, like, the Minnesota Timberwolves have not been a representation of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool that it is now, right? Like, people who love hoops in Minnesota or elsewhere. There's a lot of Wolves fans not in Minnesota too. There's just, I'm really happy for everyone.
Someone hit me up on Microsoft Teams today at my regular job and was just kind of like, any chance you're like the Kyle Teige from the DaneMooreProductions podcast? I was like, well, I'm not the Kyle Teige, but there's only one of me. And he was all of a sudden this guy that just worked in oncology in a different department at my organization. He's just like, dude, the Wolves are so good. He's like, I've been a lifelong Wolves fan, and I'm just kind of out here by myself. So that was talking about work, but just Microsoft Teams. Me and my guy Elliot. Like you said, I think you coined it really well a long time ago, but it's no longer like embarrassing to be a Minnesota Timberwolves fan. You don't have to do it in the dark. You don't have to do it in the basement. And that's why, again, I'm excited for these 2 live shows, and I'm excited for these 2 games coming up, because not only is this team good, I know they coached well, and do they play really good defense, they might be getting really close to having the best player in the league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk about him.
Yeah, so Jaden McDaniels was 2 for 7 tonight. Oh, Ant. 11 for 17, 27 points plus 18, 7 assists tonight, right? Kind of got on his playmaking shit again. Only 2 rebounds. This is going to sound crazy, dude, but like, I didn't really think he had a great game, but he just did what he always does. Just finds his spots. I think you maybe had a question to Carl after the game, but, Carl was really cooking again. Grade A performance. And Ant's so good already at 22 that he just knew that Carl was cooking. It's like, okay, Carl, you cook and I'll pick my spots. I don't have to force it early. I don't have to force it late. I'll just find these timely, like when I'm watching on TV or watching at the arena, I'm always like, kill shots. He just knows when to get those kill shots. Run the clock down, back a guy down, bully ball. Hits. He didn't want to spin left on that one, but he had to anyway. He gets double teamed, hits it, deflates the crowd, and then he hits that 3, man. He does the shrug. Like, I'm not going to say it, but he's just an impressive kid. And then what we said 30 minutes ago, to be post-game, to do it with Carl, he just constantly knows what to say, and you've covered him closer than anyone. I don't think it's fake. I don't think it's premeditated for him to think like
off is that, right?
Like, hey, man, what's for dinner? He's like, fuck dinner. Like, Jaden McDaniels was awesome. For him to show Jaden love, to show Carl love, I think part of the reason Carl's having the playoffs he is because he's empowered by that kid. And I'm running out of words to talk about him.
Well, he knows he needs them, man. Like that's why, part of it is a strategy, but at the same time, he's also just tight with those guys, and I think he is aware enough to know that his star is going to ascend on its own, right? Like, he doesn't need to do anything to bring any more attention to himself. What he needs is help, right? Because there's a lot of really good basketball players who are not in the playoffs anymore, right? And that is because they are not surrounded by Rudy Gobert, Karl Anthony Towns, Jaden McDaniels, Mike Conley, Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker down the line. And I think the way Ant's playing right now, he could carry a lesser group, but I think that kid in this group has higher aspirations than a flashy, fun, and good individual Ant playoffs, right?
sure.
Like, honestly, I haven't had like the thought or belief, and you were kind of poking fun at this a little bit earlier, the idea of like kind of needing to take steps to get to the point of being a championship contender. And I really thought this team probably was, going to lose more before they won, if that makes sense. And the reason I no longer believe that is because of what Anthony Edwards has done over the last 2 months and how he has evolved. It's just matured. That's the thing I keep thinking about with Ant and Jaden in these playoffs is like they are so young that they can improve so quickly, where it almost like might feel like a flash in the pan, and then all of a sudden it's a month later and you go, the pan's still hot, like, and so to that end, I think I was wrong that this team couldn't do it this year. They clearly can, and they clearly have a lot more to do in this series, and there's a lot, if they do get through this, a lot more to go through from there. But yeah, man, for the first time, I really think the Minnesota Timberwolves are NBA Finals contenders. Like, they really could win the championship in a month. It's crazy, but like that's where they're at now.
We did a pod. I don't know if it was when you were out in Portland or maybe it was in January when that was kind of the worst month of the season, right? But the Rudy Gobert trade was ripped for a multitude of reasons: the cost, the player, the fact that maybe they thought he would decline. But one of them is that why would you go get a guy that just doesn't fit Ant's timeline? And in January or February, we talked about, this team can play really good defense, and they're probably really well coached, and they have some offensive weapons. But you said it specifically, like, what will determine this team's fate this season is if Anthony Edwards can just mature rapidly in time for the biggest moments. And we got back into it a little bit when I was like, you know what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was doing at 22? He was 22 and 50. I know it doesn't matter, but it does kind of come full circle with Ant that he is just rapidly maturing. There are just very few, right? The ones that you can think of are the guys that I'm still uncomfortable talking about, like Kobe and Michael Jordan. Like, you just don't see this full package of not only the performance on the court at 22, the leadership off the court. He had a really great answer post-game about, like, pointing at guys when he does something cool, or like wanting to, like, the showmanship. That's part of what, like, the face of the league stuff is. That's why, like, Tatum and Jokic can't really do, like, he's the full package. And he said, like, I point at a guy after I do something cool or I talk shit because I want them to then come back at me. Like, he embraces that challenge. He embraces the challenge, man, of lifting up the worst professional basketball team in the history of the league in decades of futility. He's like, fuck it. Bring it on. Like, I don't care about any of that stuff. Like, I'm here. I'm him. And again, it's funny that I say he didn't have a great performance when he shot 68% and had 27 points, but I think that's a compliment. Like, he didn't even have to be on his best tonight. He had a couple knockout blows. He had that three. He found his guys in the right spots. I don't know if we'll have enough time to talk about Nickeil, but Nickeil hit 4 just such timely threes. He's shooting 100% when the shot matters, I feel like. But I think all of them were assisted by Ant. Like, he just trusts his guys. He had a really cool thing after game 1 where it's like, Britt asked him, is it harder to get off the ball when your guys aren't making shots in the first half? He's like, no.
Nope. Yep.
Like, I trust my guys. And at some point, the national media or the national viewing perspective is going to see what we see, that it's not fake. Like, I was always concerned this kid was going to get PR'd to death. This is just how he is. He's a dog.
Yeah, it's been interesting because now there's all the, particularly in this round, like all the national media around, and I'm not even like ripping on them. I get it. Like, you know, they're not covering the Timberwolves all the time. And,
right.
And obviously they're seeing Ant at his apex right now of his current apex of his career, and just kind of watching them all get caught in it. Like, none of them can bring themselves to ask a question that isn't about Ant. And I understand, you know, like, it's like,
right.
They're like, what? Half of them got to be thinking like, what have I been doing the last 4.5 years? You know, like, he's the dude. And it's interesting. Like, and then the other side of it is like you and me, where we're around it every day. And I think for me, talking about me personally, the being and watching and rewatching every Ant game of his career, and most of them obviously being regular season games, like the things. Yeah, I've always said, like, I think Ant's a little bit overrated as a defender because I've just watched all the film and he doesn't try on defense a lot of the time in the regular season, you know? And then there were just some like effort things and stuff like that. And that really like framed my, I'm not sure they're ready yet sort of opinion on this team. And it was because I was, and understandably so, I'm like, oh, you know, Ant's 21, Ant's 22. Like, he's obviously, this team can't go anywhere until he's there. And I think I kind of bogged myself down with seeing the things that he wasn't doing, you know, through the first 4 years of his career, consistently not doing or often not doing. I mean, the getting caught in the Pistons are here, Ant's not going to try. And that was true. Like, he said as much, right? But I focused on that too much and missed the elephant in the room, which is when it does matter, he is here, you know. And that little clip or whatever from when he was mic'd up, like, I think that was him acknowledging that sometimes I'm not, but in the playoffs, I will always be here. And that has been a truth since he was 20 years old, is he has always shown up in the playoffs. And I need to remind myself to focus on that as much as I do the things or the times in which his attentiveness or whatever wavers during the regular season. One, because it's the regular season, and two, because he's still so young that of course it's going to wander at times.
I was watching game 2 at a friend's house, same friends as game 1, because I'm superstitious. And this is just who I am. But I just cried on the way home. I won't shock my real friends, but I've been kind of hitting you with that, right, all week, a little bit of like, you know, they won game 1, they won game 2. It's still the defending champs, and until they've, you know, you get the 3 count in wrestling, like, you gotta worry that they can be the Undertaker a little bit. But I gotta sometimes do the whole, my favorite quote is like, be where your feet are, and at some point we all gotta look around and be like, man, we're all watching this kid. Yeah, and he's doing stuff. I'm not trying to sound like the Hallmark Channel, but he's doing stuff that I love being petty, and I love being like, I can't believe they comped him to Jordan Crawford or Deion Waiters. I can't believe they questioned his love for basketball. But I also remember what he was like at 19, and he really did kind of like just do athletic stuff and then talk about chicken nuggets after the game. And now he is quite possibly on pace to maybe be the best player in this franchise's history and one of the best leaders of pro sports I've ever seen, and so coachable, right? I mean, Finch and those guys love how hard they can coach him, and he's a showman, and he's funny. There's a really viral video going around tonight after they're up 30. He's on the bench, and you can see him multiple times looking around asking, like, who farted? Like, that's what he wanted to know. He's the total package, and he is everything that epitomizes this team. Like, he's tough, he's there, and I think his teammates feed off of that. I think I like watching Mike Conley now because we've talked about how Mike thinks this could be it. Like, this could be the one chance he's got. He loves that kid. He loves him. So I'll be the bad guy. I did think, again, he was plus 18, but he had 7 assists. He didn't attack the boards much. The Wolves did get out-rebounded tonight, 50-42, as we kind of look ahead now towards game 3 and 4, and we'll talk about it more at Falling Knife. But I don't think the Wolves, though defense was so good, but I don't think the Wolves played an A game tonight. Like, from what they can do. I mean, you see that defense and you look around and, like, they didn't, they shot 30-something% from 3. Like, I think there's a lot of stuff they can still do well. Mike wasn't that great tonight, but, man, if you can win games like that and win by 26 points and Ant's just like, I had a good game, it's scary, man. It's cool stuff.
To the extent that I will bring up Anthony Edwards' name and Michael Jordan's name in the same context is a reminder, I think, that is relevant to this conversation about Ant's maturity, is that Michael Jordan came into the NBA at 21 years old.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's, we have to remember that when Ant was on this team 3 years ago, he was still just a ball of clay that back in the 80s, would have been being formed at North Carolina, right? And Jordan came to the NBA around the age that Ant is right now and was more ready to go, not simply, but at least in part because he was a little bit older. And Ant is now at that age. That's just human nature, right? He just had to get up, but he had to grow up a little bit and get a little bit older. And he is there and he is mature. And I am fortunate enough to be around him almost every day, and something changed, man. Something changed. Like, I really think it was that Indiana game.
Yeah.
And
you were on the road.
Yeah, no, that was like, that's where it shifted. I think that's the point. I actually asked Kyle Anderson about that at practice, I think it was yesterday. And he pointed to that too. To that game, as I framed the question of, like, where did you see this start happening? And it wasn't just the hitting his head on the rim, blocking the shot at the end of the game. It was that fourth quarter, and that was like, if Carl's out, you need me to do more, I can and I will, and I'm ready to. Like, I am ready to be the number one guy on the team, not just in terms of skill set, but leadership and all those things. And yeah, it has elevated this team to a level that maybe they've never been at before in their 35 years. And we're along for the ride.
He's the tide that lifts all boats. He is, I just have a lot of fun, man, as a Minnesota sports fan, watching him and Carl do post-game stuff. Because, again, I know we said this an hour ago, but it was a great question to Karl Anthony Towns, who's been in the league for a while and has a stigma about, hey, how does it feel to no longer kind of be an empty calories player, right? A stat stuffer.
Yeah, Ant's answer was kind of like Finch's, like, don't ask me about the Timberwolves from 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. And I
think
that's just the same energy. So you said his name. I don't know if you'll probably do more pods before Falling Knife. Maybe, I don't know. You deserve a couple days off, but my fault. We've done 75 minutes. Just want to throw this out there. Kyle Anderson was awesome.
Yeah.
6 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, 1 block. The ability for him to just slide in. You knew when Rudy wasn't going to play that he was going to throw into the 4, not Nas. He was phenomenal tonight. And for a guy that was really struggling pre-trade deadline, kind of found his mojo again. I know we talked about a lot of guys and all deservingly, but I thought Kyle Anderson was best game of the playoffs for him. He filled in so admirably. And
shout out to the guy in the media room who asked me who I think was going to start, and I said I think it'll be Kyle Anderson, and he laughed at me.
From Fox 9? No, not that
guy. No, that's what Kyle does, man. That's his role, man. He is a Band-Aid. He is a Band-Aid, and sometimes like a wet one, like it's not always great. But that was
he was awesome.
That was
man.
really important.
Awesome.
That was really important stability there so as to, be able to keep Nas in the role that they kind of need Nas to be in.
And that was probably the best thing he did, right? He came in and was like, I'll do kind of all the other stuff so that Carl, you can just be Carl, and Nas, you can be Nas, and no one has to change their role. I think that's the best part about having a guy that is a Swiss Army knife, is that it allows everyone else to not have to change the language they speak in a certain game. Like, everyone just got to play as if Rudy did play tonight. Rudy did not play tonight. Number 27 had his first kid. Yeah, and Carl and Ant both had 27 points in honor of Rudy Gobert.
Oh, look at that. Look at that.
The circle of life.
All right, let's wrap this up.
One more thing.
Yeah,
I just want to say this because I'm a fan. I wasn't in Denver this weekend. I'll be in Minnesota this upcoming weekend, but I really want to shout out Dane Moore and John Krasinski and Chris Hine and Jace Frederick and Britt Robson, because it's not cheap to get to Denver. It's not cheap to get on the road for these playoffs. I think as Ant has leveled up, Jace Frederick has leveled up. There's been so many good articles. I want to just, as a fan, say thank you to the beat reporters and everyone covering this team, because just an insane amount of content during a time when there should be an insane amount of content, because this is, to me, my greatest sports moment, my apex, and to have all these different little articles and all know what's going on, and to know that Rudy's not playing, and to get all these updates, you guys are absolutely killing it. So again, whether it just be for a month, as this team is showing you that they might extend this thing for another 5-6 weeks, subscribe to the Star Tribune, subscribe to the Pioneer Press, support Dane, support Britt, support The Athletic, because you guys are absolutely killing it.
Thank you. Yeah, coming up next, I'm flying back to Minneapolis on a few hours, I guess. We're gonna not do
track your
anything
flight
on Tuesday. Yeah, Pilot Dan is actually flying me there.
I believe that guy for a second. That's how hyped I was.
It wasn't a giveaway to you that his picture was the same as his profile picture? No.
That's way
Come on, this is
too
your
smart
area
for
of
me.
expertise. Yeah.
I was just like, oh shit, Pilot Dan said Rudy's in the air. Let's go. Bonjour.
Pilot Dane is flying us all back to Minneapolis tomorrow. So we're not doing a podcast on Tuesday. I think if Rudy does get Defensive Player of the Year, I might have a press conference for that on Wednesday. We'll talk. I'll rewatch the game, and we'll talk a little bit more. Maybe look ahead to Game 3 a little bit more with Jay sometime on, I think, Wednesday late afternoon. So next episode probably won't be out till Wednesday evening, and then it's a whole weekend of it. Yeah, there'll be a lot of Dane and Kyle, and we would love to see you all out there at Falling Knife and Dual Citizen. Again, that's Thursday night, 6 p.m. happy hour at Falling Knife, and Saturday, 4 p.m. happy hour at Dual Citizen. We'll be hanging out for a few hours. We're looking forward to it. Kyle, appreciate you doing this. You all can follow Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Teggy. I know you and Phil Mackey are also doing a bunch of episodes over at Score North with Flagrant House. So check that out as well. There is an insatiable demand for Wolves content right now. We appreciate you consuming our stuff. So until Wednesday with Jace, he's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.